Hi, what is up, y'all, and welcome back. And we've all seen some pretty crazy demands that women be making in the dating world. You know, things like that list of unacceptable first dates comes to mind. You know, things of that nature. I'm sure many of y'all out there, you know, particularly the fellas, are thinking to themselves, I go on dates with a bunch of girls, I just can't seem to get to that next level, right? You know, like Scrat from Ice Age, we are forever chasing that nut. Well, thankfully, today we have a woman that is going to tell us specifically how to get her in bed. And I want y'all to take notes, man.
Write that down, write that down!
This one might ruffle some feathers for some of y'all, but come on, guys. Let's at least hear her out, give her a chance to explain herself. After all, I'm sure this will be oh so educational. Let's get into it. So the article in question that we'll be taking a look at today comes from the New York Post. And the title says, "I won't sleep with a man until he spends $2,000 on me. Here's why." Like I said before, I'm sure this is very educational. Let's get into that article. It's a question as old as time. How long should you wait before you sleep together? As a woman, this question is particularly tricky. Not really. I mean, if you're two consenting adults that both want to do that, honestly, there's your answer. I think when you start making a game out of sex, that's when it's becoming tricky, right? Like consent is really the only thing that matters here. It's really not that deep. Like, if one party wants to and the other doesn't, then it ain't happening, right? If both are about it, get to smashing, right? And I think when you start making a game out of it and just start lacking the necessary communication that goes into this, I honestly think that's when, like, Me Too stories start coming out, right? Like, don't get me wrong, that's a terrible thing that sexual assault and whatnot happens, but I feel a lot of those instances could be avoided with just a little bit more communication. That might be a hot take, I don't know, but that's just personally what I believe. But getting back on track here a little bit, honestly, as long as both parties consent, that's really the most important thing here. But moving on here, no, it's trickier for women because thanks to podcaster Joe Rogan, we've all heard about the frightful post-nut syndrome, the PNS. Just in case you haven't, PNS involves a man experiencing some sort of guilt following climax, primarily over how they achieved orgasm. This feeling could be the result of having an affair, watching we'll say movies, or hooking up with someone they don't actually have genuine feelings for. And this is a big part that I want to talk on here, this whole post-nut syndrome thing. I want to talk about that a little bit. So this article really seems to be painting this narrative that only men experience this, this guilt or shame, like this isn't a gender-specific internal conflict here. Women are guilty of this too. Women can go around, having sex with people and then instantly feeling like shame or regret, right? It's a two-way street. That's really what I'm trying to say. And I hate how in the year 2023, the media and articles like this have almost seemingly become opposite gender hit pieces. Like, let's be real, sometimes guys simply just want to hit it and quit it. And, other times girls just want some dick, like why is this lady trying to paint out this narrative that, guys suck, boo, they usually will only sleep with us and get guilty because they're nasty, disgusting fucking cheaters, or all they do is they watch cinema. Like, again, it's not that deep. Not that this isn't in the realm of possibility, it definitely is, but to come out here and generalize and say every guy is like this is just straight up delusional. Obviously trying to mask some other ulterior motive here. And what might that ulterior motive be? Well, I can hear all the yas queens now, like, yeah, drain his pockets and you're priceless, girl, yada yada yada, all that. But I think it's so funny how she puts a literal price tag on herself. Like, come on, the irony there in and of itself is hilarious. But this really is just a classic gold digger situation. You can try and mask it, by saying, oh, guys suck and we'll only hit once and leave. And I'm gonna just say this, first of all, you ain't fooling anyone, right? Like, you're not. We can see through it, like water, but not only that, but second, if you're really attracting the right people, they aren't going to be that shallow. If you're seeking the people you claim to be looking for, they ain't gonna do you dirty. I mean, again, there's some outliers, sure. People really do suck. let's be honest, but not to the extent you're claiming here. If those are the people you're attracting, well, got some bad news, you know, who finna tell her type shit. You know, this is a classic case of what we deem, quote, a skill issue. Hard pill to swallow, yes, I know, but I do believe that one day you will be thanking me, you know, for having the courage to fill you in. So the article goes on to talk about how, like, she listened to this podcast from some lady named Tanks or something, and how that's where, like, she got the inspiration for all this, you know, the $2,000 on me or else we ain't fucking type shit. And I had to do a little bit of digging here, so I looked into this podcast because I'm not familiar with it at all. And lo and behold, it didn't take me very long to figure out that the podcast here that's throwing out some crazy tips and tricks or whatnot, it's kind of funny how it's always these type of people that they themselves are single. So I looked into it. She's 32 years old. She has a fairly successful podcast, and she is not dating anyone. In fact, hasn't been for months. And I don't know, you know, call me a conspiracist, you know, get me my cute little tinfoil hat, if you will, but there might be a correlation between all these kooky ideas you have and not being on the dating block. Just thought that was worth noting, but the article continues by saying she was going through a list of dating non-negotiables, you know, we all know how these go, and casually mentioned that a friend of hers has now made a point of not sleeping with a guy until he was spent at least $2,000 on dates with her. Yes, you read that right, a whopping $2,000. Has no one heard of the cost of living crisis? No longer are we basing the decision on time, you know, aka 3 to 5 dates. We're basing it on cash money. So I myself, I'm a fairly young guy, at least I like to believe so. I'm kind of a boomer low-key at this point though, you know, 25 years old, but I know people that make about $2,000 in a month worth of work, right? So break that down. So essentially this woman is saying that in order to get her into bed, you know, to run the absolute privilege of undressing this woman, you got to spend essentially, for a lot of people I know, a month's worth of money on them to maybe run the chance. See, that's the kicker there. You're not guaranteed to get this woman in bed, right? That's just, you have the chance to. It's like a checkbox, if you will. You got to check off all the boxes and then you get your lucky shot, right? But, nah, that's absolutely delusional, man. I think these women are just really gold diggers, you know, just trying to get a bunch of money spent on them, you know, whether that be, you know, things like free food, clothes, jewelry, you know, things like that. Whatever it is, they're looking for handouts, and then they try to disguise it by claiming that they're just looking for their Prince Charming, you know, the right one, right? And I'm just not buying any of it. Because like the article says, you know, the cost of living is insane, bro. Like to rent an apartment, you know, to rent a home, or, you know, God forbid, buy your own home, it's expensive as fuck, man. And so these girls cannot be serious when they're out here with all these crazy ass demands. You got me fucked up. So for the purposes of time, you know, I don't want this video to go on for too much longer, but essentially she says that there's 2 reasons why she feels that this is an acceptable rule. You know, she's obviously, like we've talked about, she's gold digging, we all know that, but the 2 reasons she uses to kind of try and mask that. First one is that if he's willing to spend $2,000 out of expense, like out of pocket expenses rather, then there's a fair chance the guy is properly invested in you. First and foremost, that's not true, because there's some pretty pathetic losers out there that if they feel they have a shot at pussy, they'll be able to spend unfathomable amounts of money on that opportunity. I mean, tier 3 subs and whatnot on Twitch are a prime example of that. You know, these losers be, you know, draining their entire 401k, genuinely believing that they have a chance with these e-girls when, you know, we all know they don't. Factor in the fact that they legitimately now have a shot. You know, these losers blowing $2,000, many instances that is no problem, right? Or like, what about rich people, for example? You know, like, obviously if I was to go spend $2,000 on a bitch, you know, obviously that's a huge hit for me. But what about people that are just more wealthy than me, you know? The amount of money that they spend on you is not a good indicator of the quality in a man. He might be, you know, the biggest man-child ever. In fact, that's actually what one of her complaints is. And the second reason is that spending that amount of time together would distract him from her nakedness. So in other words, it's like the time spent is gonna allow them to form a genuine connection and have it not just all be about sex, right? But what I don't understand is, like, she's never cared about the time, right? She made it very clear that it was all about the money, right? And now she's doubling back and saying, oh, you know, quality time is important. It's like, which is it? It's either the quality time or the money. Because let's say you have such a great time together, right? You spend lots of time together, but he doesn't spend the $2,000. Well, that kind of trumps your whole argument about how he must spend $2,000 on you. And so to me, this is all just kind of like, she's talking in circles, not making any sense. Really just kind of cover up the fact that she's a gold digger, because that's really all they're after is this money. You could try and spin it some other way, but we see right through you. And she says that this will help get a lot of the icks out of the way. Like, none of this just makes any sense. And the article actually towards the end calls this out. And they basically construct this comprehensive list on what you should look for in a person that makes infinitely more sense than any of this gold digging bullshit here. So it says things like, oh, you know, what job does he work, and does he remember to do, you know, basic adult responsibilities, you know, things like taking out the trash, doing the dishes, keeping the house clean, you know, stuff like that. That to me is infinitely more important and will tell you a hell of a lot more about someone's character than some $2,000 checklist that I must spend in order to get some pussy. Like, that's crazy, man. But guys, that's basically it for the video. I appreciate y'all watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, rating, subscribe to the channel for more commentaries just like this. Leave a thought down below. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say about this. And until next time, guys, this is Runter, and we'll catch you on the next one. Later.